time of her first arrest, Pam Thompson was only 17 years old. From there, she cycled through the LA County Jail, spent 4 years in state prison, came home to Compton, couldn't find a job, couldn't find housing, started selling drugs, got arrested again, went back to state prison, this time for 24 years. Now, this is a serious talk, but it's not a sad talk. Pam's story ends well, and we'll get there. And as for me, I've spent years fighting for criminal justice reform. As a public defender, I represented thousands of people who reminded me of Pam. And now as a policy expert, I fight to repeal tough-on-crime laws that, like the 3 strikes rule, that put Pam behind bars for decades. Now let me be clear. My job up here is not to make excuses for crime. I believe in accountability when somebody breaks the law. I also believe we deserve better than a revolving door of arrest, jail, and prison. I believe we can and must prevent crime before it happens instead of just waiting to react after. Now, our brain has a reactive side and a proactive side. The reactive brain is driven by fear. The proactive brain is what generates big ideas, solutions. And when it comes to the debate on crime, the reactive brain dominates. But what if, instead of triggering fear by talking about crime, we flip the frame, we generate the big ideas, the solutions, by talking about safety? Now, all of us want to feel safe. All of us deserve to be safe. And even the most data-driven among us in this room, we can admit that our perceptions about crime aren't just about the numbers. Take a look. These are some crime statistics from the last year. Crime dropped in St. Louis. As we talked about yesterday, crime dropped in Detroit. Here in San Francisco, crime dropped as well. But do those numbers actually change your opinion of how big or small a problem crime is? The reactive brain says probably no. But what if we flip the frame? What if the question we ask is, what do you think safety looks like? You wouldn't think jails and prisons, right? Your proactive brain would say safety looks something like this. Now, this is a room of disruptors, a room of problem solvers. And if you think crime is one of those problems that just is, I'm here to tell you that we can solve crime if we flip the frame to safety. So let me give you 2 facts. The first is that we cannot arrest and incarcerate our way to safety. For too long, that's right, we can't. We can't. And here's the evidence, the proof that says so. So for decades, the only response to a crime has been arrest, jail, and incarceration. From everything as minor as an unpaid traffic ticket to something as serious as a homicide. That's absurd. All of you would agree with me that the system failed when Pam cycled in and out. And besides not preventing crime, mass incarceration is incredibly expensive. Now, this jail, which many of you probably recognize, it's Rikers Island in New York City. It's the most expensive jail in the country. Can someone guess how much it costs to lock up somebody at Rikers for a year? What do you think? Call out number. 70,000. Okay, that's low. Keep going higher.
210.
Somebody said $1 million. It's half that cost. $500,000. That's right. $500,000 for 1 year at Rikers. That's 5 times the cost of a year at Harvard. And a lot of people say to me, you're laughing because you're like, yes, I know. A lot of people say to me when they see these numbers, Insha, that's a lot of taxpayer money, but it's for public safety. But turns out the US and the United Kingdom has the same rate of crime, and yet we have 3 times the rate of incarceration. So it turns out that locking more people up doesn't necessarily make us safer. So if not more jail and prison, what do? Here's the second fact. Solving crime preventing crime and breaking the cycle is not that complicated, but it requires that we scale up and we invest in support and community. Now, my organization, the Vera Institute of Justice, we pilot, test, and scale the solutions that work to end mass incarceration and build safe, thriving communities. And what we've seen is it works. Today, from a peak of 2.3 million people behind bars, the number of people in jail and prison has dropped 20%. And it's not because we got soft on crime. It's because we got serious about safety. We actually scaled up solutions that work to support people and build community. Let me give you an example. So in general, 30% of people who are released from prison are arrested and sent back within 3 years. That's the revolving door. That was Pam. And now, during the pandemic, as jails and prisons became the biggest vector for COVID-19, we worked with partners across the country to get people out and to save lives. 11,000 people were released from federal prison alone. Now, according to the statistics, by now about 3,000 of them would have been arrested and sent back, right? Turns out, to date, only 17 people have been arrested and convicted of a new crime. That's a recidivism rate of 0.15%. So what did we do differently? What did we get right? Well, we didn't just release people and tell them to fend for themselves. We actually supported them with community, with things like job training, education, housing. And yes, it cost money. It cost $55 a day. That's still half the cost of keeping somebody in prison. Now, some of you might be thinking, this is not what I hear on the nightly news. This is not what I see on my social media feed. And that's because predominantly what we hear about criminal justice reform is scare tactics designed to actually tap into fear as opposed to offer real solutions. But when a message serious about safety breaks through the noise, we find that Americans choose it over tough on crime. Now, in this survey, we asked American voters, do you want a serious about safety approach or getting tough on crime? You see, 56% of Americans say, I choose serious about safety. 72% of Black voters say the same. Tough on crime tendencies don't win out, even with white voters, moderate voters. In a country where we can agree on very little else, there's actually broad consensus about safety. Now, as I said, this is a serious talk, but not a sad one. I hope you find some inspiration for the path forward, how we can end mass incarceration and make our communities safer. And this is Pam Thompson today. Today, she's a supervisor at a program that provides services for women coming home from prison. It's the same program that gave her community to navigate the difficult life after 24 years behind bars. For the first time, Pam knows what it's like to truly feel safety. It's because we can solve crime and end mass incarceration. We can have both safety and justice. We just need to follow the solutions, let our proactive brains do the work. Thank you.